Welcome to the second part of our commentary on Pirkei Avot, the Rambam, and other commentaries as well. So we're just starting the first perek, the second Mishna, and we're dedicating this year in memory of Binyamin ben Moshe Esther and Elisheva Yael bat Leah Levy.
So, Mishnah 2, Perek 1. We deal with Shimon the righteous. He's the first person that is actually mentioned quoting something first individual quoted in the Pirkei Avot, which is a great honor, obviously. Shimon HaTzadik was the Kohen Gadol at the time, and he you can learn by their names, just how righteous a person was, or how important a person was, by the brevity of their title. A lot of rabbanim, a lot of people, they had their names were very extended names. He was just Shimon, or most Shimon HaTzadik. HaTzadik is an adjective; it's not even a name. There were very, very few. There was Yosef HaTzadik, is Joseph who was also on the same kind of same level, and also Mordechai is the only other one who I can think of that just was the briefest of names. But they say that the briefer the name, the higher the quality of the individual. So let's just go through the Mishnah very, very quickly. Shimon HaTzadik haya Mishiyore Knesset Hagadola. Shimon the Tzaddik was one of the last of the men of the Great Assembly. He was actually the last, the remnant of the Anshe Knesset Hagadola, which we learned last week. Last lesson was the 120 rabbi assembly that was given the task of creating and establishing and maintaining the observances that we all practice today, the Amidah, the thrice daily prayers, Monday and Thursday Torah laning, and various other enactments. So he was the last of them, and this was at a time when it was a very shaky time for the Jewish nation. Alexander the Great was taking over huge swathes of territory in the area. In fact, a very famous story that is recorded in Gemara Yoma, Daf 69 Amud Aleph, tells of the period of Alexander the Great, who was now on his way to Yerushalayim. And many of Jews were very, very nervous of what would happen if Alexander the Great would come and conquer Jerusalem. Would he set up pagan idols in the Beis HaMikdash? It would be a disaster if so. Shimon the righteous, Shimon HaTzadik, was a brave man, and understood that he was on his way to Yerushalayim. Alexander the Great, who was one of the greatest war leaders of the ancient world. In fact, today he probably controlled more territory than any other human being in history. Imagine the power of this man. Alexander the Great made his way up to Jerusalem. Shimon HaTzadik donned his full Kohen Gadol attire, went with his fellow Kohanim to meet Alexander the Great on his way up to Jerusalem. As they encountered each other, a very strange thing happened. This is all recorded in Gemara Yoma. Alexander the Great saw Shimon HaTzadik, got off his horse and knelt down before him. A crazy thing. The Alexander's generals were dumbstruck and said, "Why, Alexander, why are you bowing to this poor-looking Jew?" And he turned to his generals and said, "Let me tell you something. Each time before I go into battle, I pray for the strength to succeed, and this man's face appears in my dream. This man is a great man, and you will do anything he asks." And it was a very famous story. This was the quality of Shimon HaTzadik. So,
by the way, that's how the Shimon HaTzadik pleaded the case for the Jews, and that's why Alexander the Great became very sympathetic towards the Jews through Shimon HaTzadik and that seminal meeting between them.
Yeah. It's a fantastic story. So, Shimon HaTzadik, he was the great nephew, or just nephew, it's debated, of Ezra, who was himself not very well known, but he was a Kohen Gadol. So he gives a saying. Let me continue the Mishnah. Hu haya omer. He used to say. When it says he used to say, this actually means he constantly used to say. He was very famous for saying this. He believed this. This was his one of his famous beliefs. So when he says he used to say, it means he used to always say. What did he say? Al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed. On three things the world stands. Al ha'torah, on the Torah, ve'al ha'avoda, on the avoda, the work, but al gemilut chasadim, and the practice of acts of piety. So this is the three things that Shimon HaTzadik said the world stands on. So this is an amazing thing. There's an interesting concept of things standing on three legs. I heard a very interesting a share about this from somebody in America who said that he used to go to dairy farms as a young lad, and he used to see something called, he used to see people who do the milking. They used to do it on these milking stools, and milking stools only had three legs. Why? Because something that has three legs is as stable as you can get. If something has four legs, two legs can always be on an uneven surface. But if you have three legs, whatever you are, wherever it's pushed in either way, you'll always maintain its stability. Its fundaments are always secure. So this is very important. Also, when you have a tripod for a camera, they're always three-legged. So anything that's pillars has three legs. That's the most solid base that you can have for anything. If you have four, it's not so solid. You can always push over a chair, but a three-legged thing is very, very solid. So, so also we look at what. So the three things that are very important: the Torah, the avoda in the temple, and also practices of acts of kindness. So when it says the world stands upon these things, there's debate about what the world is. The Meiri says that the world, the olam mentioned here, is the Jewish world, our religious existence. The Magen Elokim says the olam refers to the universe, is what he's referring to. The Mogen Avot, who's another commentator, says that it's this world that we live in today, our existence, that this is the olam that stands upon these three things. And Tiferet Yisrael says that it refers to humankind. Rambam talks about this, and he says, and I quote, he is saying that with wisdom, and that is the Torah, and with enhancement of good traits, and that is act of love and kindness, and with the fulfillment of commandments, and that is the sacrifices referred to in the Mishnah as service, there will be a continuous refinement of the world and ordering of its existence in the most complete way. So that's Rambam's commentary on this Mishnah. He's talking about the three things that the world stands on. Also, there is a parallel with you think about the three patriarchs. Also, the thing that the olam stood upon, the teachings and the manner, the sort of qualities of the three patriarchs. Avraham, you could say, is compared to Gemilut Chasadim, as his kindness was one of his best features, and Gemilut Chasadim can be attributed to him. With Yitzchak, we say that Avoda is you can attribute to him, because look, he was almost delivered on the Akedah, which was a form of the ultimate service, I guess you could say. And Yaakov, you could say, is you could attribute to Torah learnings.
Yeah, that's it says in Sefer Bereshit, Yaakov was Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim. He was a simple man who dwelt in tents. Now, it doesn't mean he was a camper. It means the tents, the Ohalim, is the Ohel Moed. It's the tent of meeting, which is basically the Beit HaMidrash. So Yaakovin exemplifies Torah, and not just Torah which you learn in an academic way, which is what he did when he was in Yeshivat Shem ve'Ever, in the yeshiva of his ancestors Shem and Ever, but it was also the Torah that he took out to the world, because after he left Shem ve'Ever, he went to take the Torah out when he was living with Lavan, the big Rasha, who was his father-in-law. And to keep the Torah under such circumstances is really precedent for all of the Jewish people, who had to keep the Torah under such throughout the generations, such extenuating circumstances.
So I'd like to give one more final commentary on this Mishnah from the Bar Tanura. Now, we'll be talking about the Bar Tanura. Who was the Bar Tanura? The Bar Tanura was Italian rabbi.
He was Italian. Oh.
Yeah, and his name was Ovadia ben Avraham of Bar Tanura. He was a 15th century Italian rabbi, and he was just a brief commentary. He's best known for his commentary on the Mishnah. In his later years, he rejuvenated the Jewish community of Yerushalayim and became recognized as the spiritual leader of the Jews of his generation. He said, as a commentary on this Mishnah, from the remnants, we talk about the remnants of the Anshe Knesset HaGadola, from those remaining, for after they had all died, the tradition remained in his possession. He was the high priest following Ezra, as we mentioned before, and commenting on the words he would say, which is to say that he was accustomed to say. And every time we hear a rabbi say, and he would say, it means that he said it constantly. And he mentions on the concept of the world stands. He says, the world was only created for the sake of these three things. On the Torah, he says, had Yisrael not received the Torah, the heavens and the earth would not have been created. And it is written in Yirmiyahu chapter 33 verse 25, were it not for my covenant, day and night, also the laws of the heaven and the earth I would not have set. On the Avodah, he says, he mentions the service of the sacrifices. For such have we taught in Tractate Ta'anit, and I quote, were it not for the groupings involved in the sacrifices, the heavens and the earth would not have endured. Ta'anit 27b. And we have found that on account of the sacrifices that Noach brought, the Holy One swore that he would never bring a flood. So it is that the world stands upon sacrifices, and he comments on Gemilut Chasadim. He says, as it is written in Psalms 89:3, the world is built upon your kindness, and loving kindness is to regale grooms and to comfort mourners, to visit the sick and intern the dead and the like. It's very important. Gemilut Chasadim. It's funny that Tzedakah is not mentioned here. Gemilut Chasadim is given a higher role than Tzedakah. Why? Because the concept of Gemilut Chasadim, first of all, Tzedakah is given to the poor, mostly. It's really given only to the poor. But Gemulut Chasadim can be done to everybody, to rich man or to poor man or to any type of person. Also, Gemulut Chasadim, generally, you make an effort, a physical effort, that is way above tzedakah. For example, Chevra Kedisha, a fantastic Gemulut Chasadim. It's an act of kindness to comfort mourners. Is not just giving a few pounds to someone on the street. This is spending time with comforting mourners or helping as Chevra Kedisha. These are great things of kindness that are that require physical effort. So Shimon HaTzadik said those three things, that the world stands upon the Torah, which is learning, the temple service, which is avodah, which is also like davening, I guess, and acts of kindness. So that's the second Mishnah.
Very good, fantastic. That's a good intro into for next week, when we're going to have the next stage in the Masorah, which is Antignos, the leader of Socho, where there was a transmission from Shimon HaTzadik to Antignos. And until then, looking forward to hearing that, and thank you so much. We'll see you next time.